Hey guys, John Paulamy here again, talking to you about stimulus, government stimulus that's going to happen, that's starting to happen. I wanted to make the title of this video very provocative, and I haven't decided on the title yet, but I'm going to make it something like, how Greta Thunberg is going to make me a multimillionaire or something like that. And what I want to get into is that that's what this is about. How the infrastructure, how the fiscal spending that's going to start taking place and has begun and will continue is going to have the possibility of making people that know what's going on tremendously wealthy. So, what am I talking about? Well, last week, the European Union passed a 500 billion euro stimulus bill. And I put the green in italics because if you read through it, if you read the news around it, a lot of it's going to be focused towards a triple dividend, they're saying, of economic growth, greening, and equity. Wow. So basically, it's going to be $500 billion, and most of it will be wasted. And nothing will be accomplished of their goals, except for that they're going to buy a lot of raw materials to try to do some of these things, and they're going to make us tremendously wealthy. Let me tell you how. So this article, I'll put a link to it. Basically, the news is, the European governments approved the most ambitious climate change plan to date, agreeing to pour more than 500 billion euros, that's $572 billion, into everything from electric cars to renewable energy and agriculture. And then they have this quote, "There is no doubt this is the world's greenest stimulus plan. Member states should not now put forward sensible green national recovery plans, prioritizing those policies that have a triple dividend: economic growth, greening, and equity." Look, I'm not going to get into the merits of this thing. Anything that government gets involved with, it just wastes resources. I've talked about this ad infinitum. The more that, government's not going to be able to pick the winners and losers on this thing, okay? What it does is it allocates resources based on the political clout of the people that put them in power, that finance their campaigns, that lobby them. Okay, so this is the thing in the West, right? Climate change, green, I get it. That's fine. I'm not going to argue anymore. The zeitgeist is there. When you're spending hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars a year, this is not going away. It's going to be more of this. There's too many entrenched interests. So the thing to do is get the bias out of your head. It kind of goes back to what Rick Rule said. I remember him saying this at a conference that I attended in Vancouver. And it was back during the time of the big push into geothermal that was going on in the resource markets. This is probably 15 years ago. And there was a big push. Ross Beatty, other folks, they were bringing these geothermal plants. That was the big thing. And Rick got up there and he's like, yeah, I mean, subsidizing these things basically, goes against all of my political beliefs. I mean, he described himself as a anarcho-capitalist or libertarian or something like that. So all this legislation, all these subsidies go against my political beliefs and my thinking towards government and statism. But, if somebody's going to give me 30% of my capital for free to build a project, then it stimulates every fiber of my greed. And that's kind of how you need to look at this thing. So what are you going to do? You're going to make a political statement and not invest in copper and these other things that are going to be going through the roof because these people want to build more windmills. Hey, Germany has the highest electrical costs in Europe, primarily because they've already wasted $500 billion building solar plants in the north of Germany where, there's only 4 or 5 hours of sunlight in the wintertime. If they want to continue to do that, by God, do it. I'm going to get paid. That's how you have to look at this. And depending on what happens in the United States in the election in November, we're going to get an infrastructure plan regardless if Trump wins or regardless if Biden wins. If Trump wins, it'll probably be more highways, bridges, water treatment plants, water distribution, things like that, bridges. The American Society of Civil Engineers says the infrastructure in the United States is a D minus. So there's plenty of projects to do. If you get Biden in there and you get a Democratic Senate, hey, we're going to have the Green New Deal. They're going to spend trillions of dollars doing what Germany's doing. So it doesn't really matter. Heads I win, tails I don't lose. That's the way you have to look at this. So the thing that's interesting is they're going to put $500 billion in this thing. It'll all be politically based. It'll all be going to connected companies and individuals. But what I want to get into is it doesn't matter who it goes to or what they do, because we're going to get paid. And why? Interesting article from the Manhattan Institute I found. A guy, I think the guy's name's David Mills, but I'll put a link to it. It's an excellent article. And this is like, this guy's like a physicist. This guy's an entrepreneur. This guy is not some jagoff that's just talking on the internet. I mean, I know some of you when I said that, are probably thinking, well, the pot's calling the kettle black, right? But anyways, this guy is a serious person and had a really good, well thought out article. He's made arguments and facts in here that I've been making all along. Okay, which is renewable energy is not renewable. So let's look at some snippets from the summary, and I'll put a link to this PDF. And he had another one about the scale of renewable energy and why it's a problem. But let's focus on these materials and where the materials come from. So basically, all energy-producing machinery must be fabricated from materials extracted from the earth. I've been saying that from day one. No energy system, in short, is actually renewable, since all machines require the continual mining and processing of millions of tons of primary materials and the disposal of hardware that inevitably wears out. Yes. This is what these people don't understand, because they have magical thinking. Renewables, yeah, but the machines that capture the energy are not renewable. Compared with hydrocarbons, green machines entail, on average, a 10-fold increase in the quantities of materials extracted and processed to produce the same amount of energy. So this is the key to us becoming extremely wealthy. Look, the zeitgeist is there. It's going to go there, okay? We're going to go green, regardless if it's going to work or not, regardless how you feel about it, regardless of facts and logic. That's where we're going. But they're not going to be able to get around the fact that you need the materials extracted from the earth, that you need earth-moving machines, that you need diesel to run the mine and processing facility, to run the machines that haul the ore and extract the ore. Next blurb. This means that any significant expansion of today's modest level of green energy, currently less than 4% of the country's total consumption, will create an unprecedented increase in global mining for needed minerals. Now, why is this important? It's happening. We just told you that there's going to be a $500 billion stimulus focused on green, focused on three things, right? Economic growth, which they won't get from this because there'll be malinvestment, greening, okay, which they won't get, and equity, whatever that means. That means, the job's got to be union, and you have to have diversity on the job, which, hey, whatever. It still requires materials extracted from the earth. So I thought this chart that was in the article was instructive, and I put the blurb here, or off the side of the slide, renewables ain't so renewable. And so it shows you materials used. It compares, solar PV, hydro, wind, geothermal, natural gas, right? So this dark blue is concrete or cement, right? I mean, obviously, most of the materials that you use in a hydro, which is a dam, are concrete and cement, right? Wind for the base, then the steel for the tower sections, and then the other materials for the blades and materials in the nacelle. But just the amount of concrete, the amount of steel, this is what I would just love to interview one of these people, these like Greta or one of these people, and say, okay, we're going to build so many that we're going to do this. This is how many windmills we'll need, and this is how much steel we're going to need. Now, please explain to us, the steel making process and the necessary to use coking coal to do that. I mean, it would just be funny watching the synapses start firing across and the electricity jumping across the various neurons. I mean, these people don't even know what I'm talking about when I say this stuff. They actually just believe that you just, code this all up on a computer and push a button. I mean, I'm on these job sites. You see the huge machines that we're using, the diesel fuel that's consumed. Everybody's zooming around in an F-250 or an F-150, putting running on diesel and gas. I mean, all the semis that are bringing all the material. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, and nobody gives any thought to this. I remember one time I talked about this on another video, and some wag wrote me back and said, well, there's a process in Sweden where they're using hydrogen instead of coking coal. But where does hydrogen come from? Okay, you have to extract it from coal or natural gas. I mean, it's just, you can't get around it. No matter how much you want to, you cannot get around it. You've got to, anything that you need or want in this world has to be mined or grown. That's just that simple. So is this the opportunity of a lifetime? I think so. I mean, because the stimulus is coming. The infrastructure is coming. They have no choice, right? We have 30 million people out of work. A lot of those jobs aren't coming back. They're going to make work projects, okay? Which is fine. If they build nuke plants, that's fine. If they want to build, wind plants, so that's fine for us, because why? The underinvestment that's happened in these materials is not going to allow for a rapid expansion. So the price is going to have to go up for these materials to stimulate people to go out and mine. But guess what else the Greens are going to do? They're going to tell you, hey, you can't open this new copper mine in Nevada because there's a turtle running around out there, a tortoise. You can't put this smelting plant in Cleveland because, clean air. And it's just going to be funny watching it. And all of these things are going to conspire to raise the cost. And that's going to, and you're going to limit supply with regulation. The call for batteries, and you can't get away from the nickel cobalt, technologies. Clean cobalt. I mean, we're going to have little African children mining cobalt by hand in the Congo, and everybody's just going to turn their head and pretend it's not happening. So what I'm telling you is the price of these things are going to go up, and that's the opportunity. It doesn't matter. So this is some more information here. I want to make this kind of a shorter video, but you really need to read the article, because if you're a resource investor, this is shaping up as, like I said, the opportunity of a lifetime. Building a single 100 megawatt wind farm, and that's not a big wind farm, guys. That's kind of a rinky-dink wind farm. That's like 30 turbines. Never mind thousands of them, requires some 30,000 tons of iron ore and 50,000 tons of concrete, as well as 900 tons of non-recyclable plastics for the huge blades. Yeah, that's going to be a big problem also. They talk about that in the article, and I've already talked about that in a previous video, where you've got blades just sitting around all over West Texas because landfills won't take them. They're not recyclable. With solar hardware, the tonnage in cement, steel, and glass is 150% greater than for wind for the same energy output. If episodic sources of energy, that's wind and solar, are to be used to supply power 24/7, even greater quantities of materials will be required. One needs to build additional machines, roughly 2 to 3 times as many, in order to produce and store energy when the sun and wind are available, for use at times when they are not. That's what we've talked about. That's what people don't understand. Darkness comes, no solar energy is produced when it's dark, and then the wind doesn't blow all the time. It's just, these are facts. You cannot get around them. I know people will come in the comments and say, well, batteries, John, because batteries, or because we'll figure a way around it. You'll figure a way to make solar energy at night? That's not going to happen. It's called physics. So there are additional, so we're getting the battery storage here. Then there are additional materials required to build electricity storage. For context, a utility-scale storage system sufficient for the above-noted 100 megawatt wind farm would entail using at least 10,000 tons of Tesla-class batteries. I mean, the numbers are huge. That's what people don't understand. You're talking about quadrillion BTUs of energy being required to power our world. And people don't have a conception. They think, well, you throw up a couple windmills and the pollution goes away, and it's really neat how it works. It's great. And if there's a problem with it, well, engineering, it'll get solved because engineering and science. No conception of what goes into these things or what's needed. So here's the key right here. This is why this is going to make us tremendously wealthy. Now, it's not going to happen in a week or two, but this is the context for the next decade, which is setting up perfectly for us. A Dutch government-sponsored study concluded that the Netherlands' green ambitions alone, just in the Netherlands, which is not a big country, would consume a major share of global minerals. Quote, exponential growth in global renewable energy production capacity is not possible with present-day technologies and annual metal production. But they're going to go there anyways, right? Because $500 billion needs to get spent, and there's more billions to come. In the U.S., you get a Democratic Congress in there, it's going to be the Green New Deal, right? And MMT is going to fuel it. I mean, this is setting up like, this is like you're a professional Major League Baseball pitcher and somebody's throwing a 70-mile-an-hour ball right across the plate. This thing's out of here. Home run. That's what we're looking at here, guys. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. So I'm going to put a link to this article. Take a look at it. Think about it. Okay? It doesn't matter what you think about renewables. It doesn't matter if you agree with climate change. This is what's going to happen. But they're resource constrained. But that's not going to stop them. So that's the opportunity. And it doesn't matter. If Trump gets reelected in the U.S., we're still going to have a multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure bill. We got to fix all the bridges. We got to fix all the water systems. That all requires concrete, steel, copper, all these things that don't exist. And just remember that the rest of the world's still industrializing and urbanizing. That's not going to stop. Plus, we're printing all this money. I mean, it's just perfect setup. All the wind has kind of reversed. It's like, Columbus and the crew in the Sargasso Sea. We were kind of out sitting there, no wind. It's hot. The crew's getting restless. I'm talking about in the resource markets. Everybody was poo-pooing it. Tech stocks, Amazon, who cares about value? Who cares about resource stocks? And now the winds are coming. Okay, the winds are coming into our sails. MMT, money printing, infrastructure build out, Green New Deal, okay, stimulus, physical stimulus, try to, get people back to work. It's just setting up perfectly, guys. So I wanted to get this out to you. It's a short video. Take a look at the information, and I'll be talking a lot more about this. I've been talking about it, but it's starting to come to fruition now. Before, 6 months, a year ago, when we were talking about this happening, we didn't have a line of sight to what the events were. This COVID thing has broken a lot of things free for us, and now things are moving in our direction. So it's time to start thinking about this. It's time to start thinking about how you're going to profit from it. All right, guys, appreciate you tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.